The veil between the living and the dead is thin, they say. It is not a physical barrier, not something one can see or touch, but a boundary nonetheless. Invisible, intangible, and yet it holds a presence so profound that entire lifetimes have been spent trying to understand it. Ghosts, the ethereal inhabitants of this liminal space, are the whispers of the unseen, the echoes of lives that refuse to fade into silence. To speak of ghosts is to speak of the human condition. They are the shadows of what we were and the fears of what we might become. They linger in forgotten corners, abandoned halls, and the recesses of our memories. They are stories without endings, questions without answers, and mysteries that defy the grasp of reason. Imagine this: an old house, weathered by time, its windows blank and staring. The wind passes through the broken panes, carrying with it the faintest hint of voices. They are not shouts or even whispers, but something softer, like the murmur of leaves brushing against each other in the dark. The house is alive in its emptiness, a silent witness to the lives it once sheltered. And within its walls, something remains. The idea of a ghost begins with a question: what happens when we die? The ancients sought answers in rituals and myths, weaving stories to make sense of the unknowable. In the earliest days, ghosts were often seen as guides, benevolent spirits who led the living through trials or protected them from harm. In other tales, they were vengeful, their rest disturbed by betrayal or injustice. One such story tells of a young warrior named Kale who perished in battle, his body never recovered. His spirit, it is said, roams the battlefield at twilight, searching for the sword he lost in his final moments. The villagers who live nearby speak of a figure in shimmering armor, his voice a lament for something he cannot name. Offerings of weapons are left at the field's edge, a gesture of respect and perhaps an attempt to grant him the peace he seeks. But not all ghosts are tied to such grand tales. Some haunt for reasons as simple as love unfulfilled or lives cut too short. Consider the legend of Marin, a seamstress whose laughter once filled the streets of her small town. When she died suddenly one winter, her absence was a wound that could not heal. Yet, on certain nights, those who walk past her old shop swear they hear the soft hum of her favorite tune. The sound drifts through the air, faint and fleeting, as though the wind itself carries her memory. Ghosts are not confined to the pages of history or the corners of forgotten towns. They are present even in the world we consider modern. Technology may have changed the way we live, but it has not banished the unseen. Stories of haunted hotels, spectral hitchhikers, and apparitions caught on surveillance cameras continue to stir our imaginations. Each encounter adds another thread to the tapestry of ghostly lore. Take, for instance, the tale of the Grey Woman of Alderwood Manor. She first appeared in the late 19th century, described as a figure draped in a flowing cloak, her face obscured by shadows. Over the decades, countless guests of the manor have claimed to see her. Some say she moves through the halls, while others report finding her standing by their bedside, her presence neither threatening nor kind, but deeply unsettling. Researchers and skeptics alike have attempted to debunk the sightings, attributing them to drafts, reflections, or the tricks of a tired mind. Yet, the stories persist. What is it about ghosts that captivates us so deeply? Perhaps it is their nature as bridges between the known and the unknown. They are reminders of our mortality, of the fragile thread that connects us to the world we inhabit. They are symbols of memory and loss, reflections of the emotions we carry and the moments we cannot forget. To encounter a ghost is to confront not just the supernatural, but also oneself. The air was thick with silence, an oppressive stillness that seemed to draw in the world around it. Deep in the heart of an old, forgotten village, whispers of the past lingered like a faint echo, refusing to be silenced by the relentless march of time. Here, amidst the ruins of crumbled stone walls and moss-covered paths, ghosts found their sanctuary, a realm where the line between life and death blurred into a haze of half-remembered moments. Ghosts have always been with us. They move like shadows in the corners of our vision, stirring the primal fears that dwell within the human heart. They are not merely tales to frighten children or the subject of fanciful folklore, they are the embodiment of all that is unresolved, all that remains tethered to this world long after it should have faded. The first stories of ghosts began as whispers carried on the wind. Around campfires and under moonlit skies, the ancients spoke of spirits that wandered the earth. They were seen as guardians, warnings, or remnants of tragedies too great to be contained in the realm of the living. The spirits of ancestors lingered in the minds of the living, a reminder that the past was never truly gone, only hidden beneath the surface of the present. But not all ghosts are kind. Some are restless, driven by desires and regrets that refuse to die. They haunt not just places but the very souls of those who encounter them. Consider the tale of Alden Manor, a sprawling estate perched on a hill that seemed to cut through the clouds. The manor had once been home to the wealthy Hargrave family, a dynasty whose power was matched only by its secrets. When the last Hargrave passed away in a sudden and mysterious manner, the estate was abandoned, left to the elements and whatever unseen forces might claim it. Years later, when the villagers ventured up the hill, they spoke of strange occurrences, cold spots that numbed the skin even in the heat of summer, doors that creaked open without a breeze to move them, and, most chillingly, the sound of faint laughter that echoed through the empty halls. It wasn't long before the stories began to take shape. The ghost of the youngest Hargrave, a girl named Evangeline, who had vanished on the eve of her 12th birthday, was said to haunt the halls, her laughter tinged with sorrow and a longing for answers. Ghosts like Evangeline remind us of the weight of mystery. They are stories without endings, questions without answers. We create rituals to protect ourselves from their presence, but often, those rituals are more about controlling our fear than the ghosts themselves. Salt lines, iron nails, and prayers whispered into the dark, these are the tools of the frightened, the desperate attempts of the living to keep the dead at bay. And yet, for some, ghosts are a comfort. The spirit of a loved one appearing in a dream, a familiar scent wafting through an empty room, a gentle touch when no one else is near, these moments feel like gifts from beyond the grave. They reassure us that death is not an end but a transformation, a transition into a state where bonds of love and memory cannot be severed. But what if a ghost does not wish to be kind? What if the spirit is not bound by love but by rage, or sorrow, or an overwhelming desire for revenge? These are the ghosts that haunt not just homes but entire generations. Their presence is a stain that cannot be washed away, no matter how many exorcisms are performed or how many prayers are recited. They are the specters that inhabit urban legends, the ones whose stories are told in hushed tones, with a glance over the shoulder to ensure no unseen ears are listening. There is the story of the Willow Creek Bridge, where countless travelers have reported seeing the figure of a woman standing by the edge, her white dress flowing in a wind that doesn't exist. Her face is pale, her eyes hollow, and when she looks at you. Beyond the debate of their existence, ghosts hold powerful symbolic value. They represent memory, loss, and the inescapable past. In many stories, ghosts linger because they have unfinished business or a message to convey. They remind us that our actions leave ripples, even beyond the grave. Ghosts also challenge our